Hello, beautiful friends. Today I want to talk about the steps to really healing from these toxic relationships, from narcissistic abuse, from codependency. There are 3 specific steps that I work with in my monthly membership and in my courses that I think is really important to put into sort of a structure. So really understanding what's going on in the first place is kind of the wake-up call. I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to go into what to do about this and how this process works. Watch this video. So the first really big sort of blast open to your healing, when you find yourself in relationships, whether it's friendship, boss relationship, parental relationship, or intimate relationship, with people who make you feel like you don't really matter as much as they do, or you feel like they're not looking at me when I'm talking, they're not asking me about my day. It's really more about them a lot of the time. I kind of feel like, maybe I'm too sensitive, but I just feel like for some reason something feels off. There's anxiety when I'm around them. This is because you've probably grown up in a situation where there's been some dysfunction or some emotional invalidation. And what that does is it makes us attracted to a similar dynamic because that feels familiar and it feels like home. So we attract that type of dynamic again in friendships, relationships, boss relationships, any kind of really intimate relationship, especially when this happened in our younger years where there was then an attachment trauma. What an attachment trauma really means is that pain that we had with our original attachment. Someone wasn't emotionally validating us. It was insecure. We weren't sure if they were going to be there for us or not, or love us or not. What happens is that wound shows up in the place where we connect intimately with others. So there will be intimacy issues, and there will be authenticity issues, and there will be some codependency issues when we have an attachment trauma. So what I want to talk about, I'm going to add that in, but really, aside from attachment trauma, just growing up in an environment where one or both parents was not emotionally available creates a big issue for us. And the first thing I like to say in all my videos too is I am never blaming parents. I believe we're all born in an emotional dark age, and a lot of people didn't have the tools or awareness to be any different than they were. They didn't have YouTube back then when our parents were growing up to understand how to have emotional intelligence and heal themselves. It wasn't taught in school. Hopefully one day my videos will be taught in school because I would love that. I would love for people to have a young education about emotionality and about really understanding ourselves and validating ourselves in these ways. So when we grow up in an environment where one or both parents were not emotionally validating, where we didn't feel like we really mattered based on how we felt or who we were. We weren't asked a lot about what we wanted to eat for dinner. We were just given something. We weren't asked about what we wanted to wear. We just wore something. We weren't asked about what we like in school. We just had to go to school. We weren't asked about what we wanted to be when we grew up. They just told us you have to be successful and you have to do these things. They had the best intentions for us, but many, many, many of us have emotional wounds because we were missing a very big piece, which I'm going to talk about. So the first healing in this work is understanding that this is what happened and not feeling guilt about blaming anyone, because you don't have to. You just have to understand that this is what it was. It was an emotional dark age. It still is in a lot of ways. And so we didn't get what we needed, and because of that, we attracted more of what we don't need. We attract people in our lives who are extremely attractive to us and probably have a lot of charisma and excitement and fun and connect. And then what they also have is a part of themselves that is selfish and disconnected. So that becomes really hard because you're like, but I love this one part of this person, but God, it feels traumatizing and tragic in other ways. And what that is that's pulling on that wound. It's pulling on that anxiety that comes up. It's pulling on that awareness that this doesn't feel right. But I put up with it because I don't have the awareness that this is a personality type. This is someone who has inner wounding, and this is their coping mechanism. Some of us call it narcissism. Some of us call it emotional wounds. Some of us call whatever we want to call it. But the truth is, I'm not being treated as an emotional equal. And because I've never been taught that, I don't even hold myself in that way, so I put up with way too much shit. So the first thing is recognizing the personality traits that go along with this dynamic. They're not asking me about me. I feel like I'm kind of here to validate them. I get anxiety when I put a boundary in or say, you know what I feel is this. It doesn't work for that person. What works for that person is anything that validates them and how they feel. So recognizing that and seeing, dang, this is around me a lot. What is that about? The second piece of this healing is boundaries. And if you've done my Soul Lab class, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, check it out, link below. Boundaries, huge. You start to have a boundary, which means speaking up, being in truth, speaking up to be in alignment with that anxiety feeling, with that feeling you have of, well, why aren't they asking me about me or my day? Or, you know what, I feel like I want to share. Listening to that boundary, bringing it up, you know that if this person has narcissistic qualities or toxic qualities, they ain't going to like it. And in fact, they might reject you or leave you or just start ignoring you or stonewall you or not look at you when you're talking, and that anxiety is going to come up. And what I want you to know about that anxiety is that is your inner guidance telling you, this isn't good. This is reminding me of a wound. Some people have a problem with the fact that I say our emotions are the guidance. But the truth is, this is your emotional guidance system. If you're having a negative emotion, it means that source does not agree with the thought you're having about something. A negative thought would be, or a negative emotion would be, oh, this person's ignoring me because I did something wrong. No, source doesn't agree with that. The negative emotion you're having is that this person isn't treating you in a way that feels right for you. So many highly sensitive people take a long time to learn the boundaries and sort of this part of the process because they've been trained to think that if I have this feeling, it means I've done something wrong or I've created something wrong or there's something about me that should change to make that person feel back to loving me again. But the reality is highly sensitive people are highly attuned to energetic toxicity. So if you're feeling like you've set a boundary and someone doesn't like it and you get the anxiety, that is your indication this person might actually be a toxic person. And so the next step is actually aligning that and realizing, okay, I'm going to watch this for a while, but what I know from history and what I know now from recognizing this type of reality and this type of pattern, this type of person, is my emotional needs will not be met here. And instead of hitting my head against a wall with these types of people, I'm going to start to look within and do the inner work that they're forcing me to do because I'm not getting it out there. And I'm starting to validate my own emotions and start to put boundaries around what I share with them. Emotional intimacy is a big part of this healing. Becoming emotionally intimate with you and not sharing all your shit with toxic people. Not sharing all your shit with many people for a while. Maybe just a coach, maybe just a healer, maybe just a therapist for a while. Until you build that integration with yourself of trusting what you feel and following it so that you can heal. Instead of giving away all of your emotional power to people that abuse it and don't know how to hold for you and don't even have interest in it because they're really just interested in their own emotional needs. So putting that boundary in is number 2, recognizing, putting the boundary in. And number 3, realizing I think I can only have a surface relationship with that person, or maybe I will remove that person eventually so I have room for the authentic relationships that will fuel me and that will nurture who I truly am. Even though I don't even know what that feels like because maybe I've never had it, I know what it feels like to now trust myself and speak on behalf of myself and align my actions with my healing. So the 3 steps of really healing these relationship issues with toxic people or narcissistic systems in the world. We start to leave those systems and open to a more authentic way of living. We start getting real about how we feel so we can heal. Please check the links below. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.